The following is an exclusive presentation of Jesup Broadcasting, the sports leader in Southeast Georgia.
World famous. The world famous Butch and Bob Show.
World famous Butch and Bob Show right here on WIFO 105.5 FM in Jesup, Big Dog Country Radio. And Bob, we got a special guest on the phone with us right now.
Yeah, we got a former state representative, Scot Turner. He's from Holly Springs, Georgia, Cherokee County. He's now with a group called Eternal Vigilance Action. Called to talk about a bill he's working on to allow cities to opt for an instant runoff election. Mr. Turner, appreciate you being here on the world famous Butch and Bob Show.
What an honor it is to be on the world-famous Butch and Bob Show. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. How'd you find out about the show? I know a friend of mine in Atlanta talked to you, so.
Yeah, so, Brian Robinson, former spokesman for Nathan Deal, is working with us, and he put us in touch with y'all.
I got you. Well, again, you're a former state rep. What I understand, you're working just in Atlanta, working to get bills passed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's the group that I work for now. Is Eternal Vigilance Action is a group of former state lawmakers and activists and academics, and we are working on policies. Our mission is to advocate for policies which maximize the American promise of liberty and justice for all.
And what you're working on is a bill trying to work on allow cities to opt for an instant runoff election. Explain that.
So, you remember what it was like last year during Thanksgiving. You know, y'all went to watch the SEC championship game, and every single commercial was about Herschel Walker's a horrible person and Raphael Warnock's a horrible person. And that's because our election wasn't over, right? Did you feel that pain?
Yeah. I did.
You got that right.
We all felt it, right? We all felt that pain. And we felt that pain because we have this rule, and Georgia is the only state that uses runoffs in a general election. And there are other states that have it on the books. We're the only ones that have ever used it. And it requires a 50% plus one winner. But we looked at it and we found that it costs counties like Wayne County a ton of money because they are the ones your local counties are the ones who are paying for that runoff to be administered. So statewide, that number's $75 million. And it would be fine to pay that if we actually got a majoritarian winner, but we see huge drop-offs in turnout. The Herschel Walker race, 397,000 people didn't come back for that race. So Herschel ended up not being able to get a lot of those voters. And it has a major impact on voter participation. So you pay a ton of money. You don't get nearly as many people to participate the second time. And so you're not really getting that majoritarian winner. And then you subject yourself just to constant negativity, even in through the holidays. I mean, Thanksgiving dinner, you went to watch a football game with the Bears or the Lions they were playing that day, and you were just bombarded with negative ads. You know, if you started your Christmas early and you were going to watch It's a Wonderful Life on TV, every commercial break was Herschel Walker's human piece of trash. And it's bearing on us. It costs so much money. It's dragging out everything, and people hate it. So we looked at a way, one of the things that it's supposed to promise is that majoritarian winner, the 50% plus one, and there's a lot of value to that concept if you can actually make it happen, but how do you do it? And instant runoffs are basically a tweak on how we do it today. Instead of coming back 4 or 5 weeks later to tell us who your second choice is, you would vote on a ballot you would mark who your second choice is. Now, in Georgia, there are 3 basic candidates that run every time. You have your Republican, your Democrat, and a Libertarian. You don't really see many other candidates on the ballot. So of those 3, the Libertarians really would have to tell us who their number 2 choice is. And then if and only if nobody gets 50% plus one, we would look at those ballots to see who the second choice was. Same as today, those people have to come back and express their vote a second time. In today's process, they would just be doing it on Election Day. And then we would have our elections over, a week after Election Day. It would be done. So that's the concept of what instant runoffs are. It's not a major change in the thought process, but it is revolutionary in saving us time and money and not bombarding us with negativity. And there's a bill now, it's HB 200, that would allow for cities to adopt this and as an opt-in. They wouldn't have to adopt it. They could opt to use it for their elections, and this is important. There are some cities that are their budget's up to 13% of their city budget has to be set aside in case they have to have a runoff election, and that's a lot of police officers that could be added to their force. They could fill their potholes. Those are the types of dollars that compete with elections for our local government. So we feel like it's a good sort of pilot program to do a proof of concept, and I think it's also important for your audience to know that every Republican in Georgia has already voted for ranked choice voting because it was part of SB 202, the election bill that the Democrats attacked viciously and maliciously and lied about, and called Jim Crow 2.0. But in there was a provision that allowed military voters overseas to use ranked choice voting, and nobody complained. There's been no big news story. You know how every story in Georgia, it says it has to do with elections, you hear about it, right? If there's any controversy at all, well, we've been using it for the last year for those races, and those voters have been using it, and nobody's complained. There's been no big story, no big blow up, because people who use it like it.
And on the phone with us is former state representative Scot Turner with a group called Eternal Vigilance. Are you getting much traction in Atlanta? Are you getting any feedback?
So the bill that we have right now, the municipal opt-in, was passed out of committee last year unanimously. So you had Democrats who were far left and Republicans who were far right all vote for it. This year the bill came under attack, and the criticisms really fill two categories. The first category is completely false. There's just some really just dumb and mind-numbing things that people claim about it. Things like, you can't, it'll flip your vote from one candidate to another, somebody you didn't intend to vote for. That's just not how it works. So there's a big category of false attacks, which is one of the reasons why we're trying to talk to people like you and in your audience. And the second category are things that are really not an attack on instant runoffs or ranked choice voting, but more an attack on the concept of runoffs. One of the criticisms is, they point to this race in Burlington, Vermont, in a mayor's race there, where the candidate in the first round got 29% and went on to win. And if you think that a candidate who gets 29% in the first round shouldn't win the second, let me introduce you to a guy named Jeff Duncan, who got 26% in his first round and went on to become lieutenant governor. So there are instances where runoffs create weird results, and that's going to happen no matter how you choose to count the votes. But I don't think there's any question that Jeff got 50% plus one ultimately when he became lieutenant governor.
You hit the nail on the head when he talks about money. Small counties like us, it's very, very expensive, but we don't have the power like the big cities of Atlanta, and it seems like everything's run out of Atlanta. So how do you get those people on board? Because they seem to be all for it.
The city of Atlanta or people in Wayne County?
No, people in Wayne County are like you. I mean, it's very expensive to have these runoffs, but like I said, we don't have the, nobody listens to people in small counties like us. They listen to those big people up in Atlanta. So how do you get it passed up there?
I tell you what, if Butch or Bob calls their state representative and state senator, they're going to listen to you. If the listeners of the Butch and Bob show call their state legislators, they're going to listen to you. The first thing is to be educated on the issue. If you hear something, so many things today, people are just, especially in the world of social media, people are just willing to repeat things that just aren't true. Find out the facts for yourself. There's a whole bunch of data out there. You can go to there's a website here in Georgia run by Georgians and created by Georgians called betterballotgeorgia.org. Betterballotgeorgia.org. And you can learn more about it. And if you want to get plugged in and you want to get on the newsletter and learn more, if you want to become an activist about it, we have ways for you to do that too.
So which bill is it that people need to be aware of? So when they call their representatives, what's the bill number?
HB 200. And then Senator Max Burns has a study committee that is looking at getting rid of runoffs. That's SR 221, and that would be a good time for us to make our case to legislators in a more educated way to show what this solution can do in cutting those costs and maximizing turnout and making sure that your voice as a voter is counted.
Now, I talk about cost all the time. When you get a chance, can you do something about the 3 weeks of early voting? Because that's costing these counties a lot of money as well.
I tell you what, you don't like early voting, or
I don't like the 3 weeks. I don't think they need 3 weeks of early voting. I mean, it's very expensive for counties like Wayne, Long, Pierce, Appling. I mean, you got to have people down there. You know, we're going right now through an East Bloss election, and about 20 people a day are voting. So it's a 3 weeks period. So, I mean, why is it going to be 3 weeks? So it's the same thing with these runoffs.
They ought to put SPLOST on the general election ballot. That's what they ought to do. But I bet your counties don't like to hear that.
No, this is an East Bloss for education, so they like it just the only item on the ballot. But I just understand why they got to have 3 weeks of it. So it's just a very expensive process for counties. And same thing with runoffs. I mean, 3 weeks of extended voting is very costly. And like I said, I don't think people in Atlanta understand the cost that is. Counties like us, it's a very, very expensive process.
Yeah, it is, and people don't realize it, right? I mean, and there's also like a story for me when I ran for office the first time. Early voting sort of bit me a little bit because I was counting on being able to run a race all the way up to election day, and I went in to neighborhoods and knocked on doors with my neighbors and asked them for their vote, and a lot of them were saying, "Man, I wish you'd come here yesterday. I just voted." It makes it harder on candidates too.
Tell us a little bit more about your group, the Eternal Vigilance. What all did they do?
So we're a nonprofit. We're a C4 nonprofit, so we can be in the advocacy space. And we basically, when I left the legislature, I had become a policy nerd. I just love working on big important issues. One of the issues I worked on was elections. I was on the Governmental Affairs Committee, and the hand count, the audit process that is in law today, that's there because of me and the work that I did, and which I demanded that be added. It would not have been if I hadn't done some pretty extraordinary things and thrown just a complete fit about it, to be honest. So they added that language, and that's what they use to make sure that the ballots that are generated by Dominion are actually reflective of what the intent of the voter is, because they look at them with human eyeballs rather than the barcode scanner. So that type of work was work I wanted to continue to do, and there were folks who took notice of that, and so we raised some money to start this nonprofit. But the elections isn't the only thing that we work on. We this year we've been working with Representative Houston Gaines out of Athens and Senator Randy Robertson out of Columbus, LaGrange, who are carrying a piece of legislation regarding cold case murders. In Georgia, there are over 500 cold case murders that are under jurisdiction of the GBI. We have no idea how many there are in our little local jurisdictions, and we are working to allow on a bill called the Coleman-Baker Act, named after two young women who were murdered in 1990 and in 2001, and their murders have never been solved. And evidence has recently come up that had there been a review of these cases on a regular basis, they would have realized that they had never processed things like fingernail clippings that had DNA evidence attached to them and things of that nature. So we're advocating on behalf of those families for this legislation. We've been collaborating with the GBI and Georgia Georgia Sheriff's Association, Prosecuting Attorneys Council, and others to develop that legislation and these legislators that I previously mentioned. And that bill passed the House this week in 168 to 1 vote, and we're hopeful it will be on the governor's desk for signature later this year.
Well, Mr. Turner, we appreciate you being here on the show. Once again, give the website for people listening that want to go and learn more about what's all taking place with your organization.
Sure. I'll give you two, if you don't mind. The first one is betterballotgeorgia.org. Betterballotgeorgia.org. It's where you can learn more about instant runoffs and ranked choice voting here in Georgia, from Georgians and by Georgians. And then our organization is eternalvigilance.us. Think of it as the old saying, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
Okay. Again, thank you very much for being here on the show. Good talking to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Okay, take care, Scott. 105.5 FM in Jesup, Big Dog Country Radio, WIFO, world famous Butch and Bob show. Former State Representative Scott Turner here on the show this morning, talking about trying to get rid of getting back together again to try to have a runoff. He just put a second choice on there, and I guess the guys that came in third and fourth or whatever, their votes would go to the top two or something like that. I don't know all the details on that, but as time goes by, Bob, you learn more about these action committees up there in Atlanta and in Washington, D.C. There's all kind of committees working on stuff all the time.
It's always about the money, but I said it'd be a nice way to save money. I said because
it's a great way to save money.
Very expensive for
if all the details
counties like us. And we're not the only. I said Long has the same issue. Pierce, Appin, Glenn. I mean, we're just those runoffs are very expensive. These 3 weeks of early voting very expensive. Like I said, I mean, there's a trickle to the voting booth this week. For
what do you think I'll do? Go down to 2 weeks?
I'd say 1 week.
Hell, that ain't going to happen, Bob.
1 week. You can't get there in 1 week. Saturday. I mean, they got 2.
It ain't happening, Bob.
I feel sorry for those people going to be there Saturday.
They'll
have about 5 people show up on Saturday voting.
Yeah, it's
just a waste of money.
1 week is not going to happen. You may get it down to 2 weeks, but it's never going to change from 3. You'll have people acting like it's the end of the world if you take off a week on early voting.
Personally, if you can't vote the day of election, you don't vote. That's just me.
Yeah, I vote the day of election.
That's supposed to be. That's what it was in the old days. You show up for election day and vote.
Okay,
3 weeks
early voting is not going anywhere.
Two thumbs down on 3 weeks early voting.
I understand.
It's ridiculous.
I understand. Maybe 2 weeks would be pretty good, but the cut down on the cost. Still, if folks are really interested in voting, 2 weeks with Saturdays and election day, that's still plenty of time to vote. But there's going to be folks out there who will just act like it's the end of the world if you take off a week and it goes down to 2. I mean, you've had each one of our state representatives and state senators all say that. If you take off one of those weeks, there will be more blowback than anybody wants to put up with.
Yesterday, they stayed down there all day long, and guess how many people showed up? 26.
26.
So 3 days, they got 99 votes. So they got today, Friday, and then 2 more weeks, 2 Saturdays, and maybe they'll get 1,000 before it's all said and done. So it's just a waste of time and money. That's just my personal opinion. I'm sticking to it.
Well, I understand. But the realities of today's politics. There's no way in the world that everybody's changed, especially when it comes to the primary and general elections. It just ain't going to happen. There's too many people out there who wish it was longer. So they can recruit more people and get them into the votes. They would call you all kinds of name bobs if you took off a week. I mean, you would just be ripped. Yeah, it's amazing how people. To me, if you can't get there in 2 weeks in the election day, then you're not really interested. You're just getting maybe coerced going into voting.
Just sit on the playground. Sticks and stones could break my bones, but names will never hurt me. So they come on the names. Well, they used to say in 5th grade at the playground.
That's right, Bob. Yeah, but it would save 1/3 of the cost. I mean, if you took off one of the weeks, that would save 1/3 of the cost, and it would save taxpayers in the state of Georgia. God knows how much money.
It's just an expensive process. I don't think people realize how expensive it is.
Yeah. When you're not spending your money, then a lot of folks would put these things on and want that 3 weeks. It's not their money, so it just ain't going to happen. Yeah. It's not the reality of today's politics, Bob.
you're always looking at the glass half empty. You got to look at it half full. You got to be optimist. You keep saying that they're going to JHS8 never going to change the times of football and that's going to come eventually.
They're not going to change football to spring.
Never say never.
Yeah, I will, because that's
Never
just the
say
reality
never.
of it.
There's always hope. Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive. No.
Gotta believe.
I just know the realities. Football's not going to be changed to the spring. And I don't believe that you're going to go down from 3 weeks to 2 weeks or 1 week or something like that when it comes to early voting.
I got to thank the weatherman for this mild winter because, like I said, it's not been bad at the ballpark at all this year. So
yep, you haven't been freezing out there.
Haven't been freezing.
No,
so.
we got a Wayne County baseball game today, don't we?
5:45 in Vidalia, defending AA state champion.
5:45, folks. First pitch today.
I didn't look at the schedule as closely as I should have because it's normally 6 o'clock for all games, but this one in Vidalia's at 5:45. So we'll be.
I guess they like to get started 15 minutes earlier down there.
I don't know what 15 minutes will do, but I'm
hey,
all
15 minutes is 15 minutes, Bob.
That's true.
Yeah. So today's first pitch will be at 5:45. We encourage you to get out there and support the Jackets in Vidalia, taking on the defending AA state champs, Vidalia.
And then we can happen tomorrow if the weatherman cooperates, but the forecast not looking good.
40% tomorrow night, but we'll see. It's going to be a little breezy out there. Could make some fly balls, do some weird stuff out there tomorrow afternoon or evening or whatever. Is it 6 tomorrow?
6 o'clock tomorrow.
6 o'clock tomorrow. So that could create some interesting situations there. We do have that cold front coming through later tomorrow afternoon, bringing us. They don't say breezy, they windy conditions. A lot of wind going to be coming through tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. 40% chance of showers tomorrow night. This weekend, Bob, is looking good. You're going to have sunny skies and around upper 70s there for that golf tournament on Saturday.
I checked with the committee last night. They got about 26 teams signed up, so they can take a couple more. So if you want to get your 3-team into the Winter Blues golf tournament, call the Pro Shop today at 427-6505. But looking forward to Saturday. Should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that meal after the 18 holes. The fried chicken.
You're
dinner.
always looking forward to the meal,
and
Bob.
the country club.
Always.
The country club's
your
got.
mind is
the country
always
club's
on
got
food.
great food. I'm telling you, that fried chicken's going to be delicious. I'm looking forward to the meal. The heck with the golf.
Let's food
eat.
out in front of Bob, and you can lead him anywhere.
That's right. It's all about the food. Tell people all the time on a seafood diet. That's right. It's all good.
That's right. You see food, you're going to eat it. Seafood
That's
diet. Right. Okay. Well, anything else, Bob?
No, I just hate to see that story in Athens, and more details coming out. They were racing down the street, 104 miles an hour.
It sounded like we were just a little drag racing there in Athens. You ever drag race in Athens, Bob?
No,
you didn't?
I've never.
All 4 years you're there at Georgia, you never drag race at all?
I didn't have a vehicle.
Oh, yeah, you didn't have a vehicle.
My parents dropped me off.
Dropped you off. We'll see you in 4 years, Bob.
These 2 legs got me everywhere I needed to go. I didn't have a vehicle. We were poor. We had 6 kids.
That's right.
They dropped me off the Foot Locker and said, "Good luck."
Good luck.
But it was freedom. I had a good time. I walked that campus pretty well.
Yes, sir. I spent a lot of time walking. I didn't drive around the campus. When you're on campus going to classes, you either walked or you took the buses. I mean, that
the bus. That's true.
Yeah, and you really didn't use your vehicle that much. Now, that I did when I was on campus. Now, my junior year, I was at Callaway Garden Apartment, so I had to drive back and forth to the apartment each day on my junior year. But my freshman, sophomore, and senior years, I was there on campus.
I say it all the time. The only time I crossed the bridge was to go to the basketball games. Like I said, everything else was on the other side of campus, so I didn't have to cross the bridge.
You didn't have to cross the bridge that much?
No. I stayed away from that science and all
science,
this
the
math,
ag, and
math,
and pharmacy and vet,
that was
and
all
all that down there on the
me.
south side.
I stayed on the journalism side.
You stay on the north side there, on the old campus.
But if there's a basketball game, I did walk to the Coliseum to watch the Dogs play. So.
All right, Bob, you have a most wonderful day.
Take
All
care.
Right. The world-famous Butch and Bob Show right here on WIFO 105.5 FM in Jesup. Brought to you by O'Quinn & Associates, Murphy Builder Supply, Van's Barbecue, and First Southern Bank.